Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to share with you a massive targeting hack that helped my client lower their ad costs by 17% week over week on $154,000 of ad spend. Now, in total on Meta Ads, this client spends upwards of $22,000 a day on ads, on Meta Ads. And it's really hard once you get to that level of spend to actually lower your ad costs, especially by more than 10%. So nobody was more pleasantly surprised than me when we set up this targeting strategy, and it worked like a charm, and it's still working. So in this video, I'm gonna share with you the exact audiences that we set up, but the more important element that I want you to walk away with is the strategy that we use to put these audiences together. So this is a lookalike strategy that I'm gonna present today. This client runs extensive keyword targeting audiences as well. So that is a really strong strategy that we lean into really hard. But this particular strategy today is based on lookalike. So in order to start putting this strategy together for you, the first thing that I want you to do is to think about the steps that your customers take from the initial time that they're seeing your ad to the time that they purchase. So I'll give you the example of this client and how we put it together. The first step is that their customers were seeing a social media ad on Meta Ads somewhere, Instagram or Reels, Stories, somewhere, and they stopped scrolling or stopped swiping. So that's the first step. The second step is that they watched enough of one of our video ads, which usually are about 15 seconds in length. They watched enough of that video ad to be interested. And so the third step is that they then decided to click to one of our lead generation landing pages. And then from there, they decided to fill out their lead information. They got a phone call from our sales team, and then they purchased from there. So that's the entire process that somebody goes through in order to buy. Maybe they have other steps, right? But for the purposes of building out this audience strategy, you just need that clean process. If somebody went start to finish today, what would that process look like? Step 2 is you're going to set up a campaign, whether it's leads or sales, whatever you're trying to get for your business. We set up a lead generation campaign because that's what our initial ad campaigns are always trying to do, is drive leads. And we named it the narrow lookalike campaign. We set it on campaign budget optimization because I want the algorithm to be able to choose from a few different audiences within this campaign. And then we set up 1% lookalikes on all of the events associated with that full funnel. So let me explain a little bit more the exact audiences. It's true that I left out the stop the scroll because that's a very broad audience. You can set it up. You can set up a 1% lookalike on 3-second video views, for example. So if you want to test that out, you can. But for the purposes of my audience, I thought we already have 5 great audiences, and I don't need to mix that one in. So the first audience that we did set up was a 1% lookalike on video views. I chose our top 10 to 15 highest performing videos, and those were based on both cost per lead, but also ROAS in the end. People who actually purchased. People who had watched at least 75% of those top 10 to 15 videos. And again, that was a 1% lookalike. So the video views audience is pretty broad, although 75% watched is a more narrow version of that broad audience. But then we also set a 1% lookalike. So I was pretty confident that that was a pretty targeted audience for us to target. So I put it in the narrow lookalike campaign. The second audience that we set up was a site visitors audience, but we added the exact URLs that we wanted to target the people from those particular URLs, and we added our main paid advertising lead generation URLs. So it wasn't our entire site. This business does over $100 million a year, so we don't need all of the people on all of their programs. We wanted the people who were likely to land on our paid advertising lead generation landing pages, right? So we set up the site visitors, and then we added the URLs, and then we set up a 1% lookalike on that audience and added it into our campaign. Next, we set up a 1% lookalike of all leads, all time. And then we set up a 1% lookalike of all purchases, all time. And we put all of these audiences into our main campaign, and we set it live. And within literally just 2 days, it had half the cost per lead. But I wasn't sure at the time yet if it was going to actually be qualified leads, so we let it bake a few more days. But it was pretty evident after a few days it was definitely lowering our qualified cost per lead. So we went forward with step 3, which is, if the narrow campaign is working really well for you, it's time to expand that into a broader version of those audiences. So it's not as simple as just going from a 1% lookalike to a 2% lookalike. There are many ways that you can expand your targeting. So I'll talk you through how we did it and why we did it that way. So the first audience was the 1% lookalike on video views, 75% watched, our top 10 to 15 videos that were around 15 seconds in length. And instead of going to like a 10% lookalike or maybe a super lookalike on that audience, we decided to expand it instead by backing that 75% down to only 50% watched. So way more people got to the 50% watched of our videos than the 75%. So that's how we expanded the base audience, but we left it on a 1% lookalike. Then we decided to do a super lookalike for our lead generation landing page views. And if you're not familiar with a super lookalike, it's setting up a 1%, 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%, etc., all the way up to 10%. So you're going to have 10 audiences, and then you put all 10 audiences into your ad set, and that is your targeting. And we did the same for leads all time. We did a super lookalike leads all time, and then we also did a super lookalike purchasers all time. And that audience came in at similar results, but we actually got that audience up to $3,500 a day of spend and is performing beautifully. And then both of these audiences combined brought down our cost per qualified marketing lead 17%. And it wasn't just 17% on this little bit of spend, it was actually 17% on an entire week's spend for this brand. And it's continued to drop. So it's been a really exciting time. It's not often that I'm able to bring down ad costs this much for a brand that's spending so much. So it was really exciting to see these results. And then lastly, we took it one more step. Step 4 was making sure that all of these base audiences that we had built lookalikes on that were working well, that we were also retargeting those base audiences. And there were 2 that we were not. The video views, we weren't retargeting those. And then we also weren't specifically retargeting people who had landed on our lead generation landing pages. So we threw those 2 audiences into our retargeting campaign, and the cost also came down on that particular campaign as well. So this is the 4-step process of building out this audience strategy. And we could go to probably a step 5 or step 6, continuing to broaden our audience. But for now, I don't have more budget to play with. The client's happy, so we're keeping it as is for now. I hope that these audiences can help you lower your ad costs, and more importantly than just these audiences, I hope that this strategy can help you build really smart, high-performing audience for your business in the future. So that's it for today. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that subscribe button, and I will see you in the next video.